Hi and welcome to this week's GMBN Tech Show, coming at you from my bike cave. We're not at the studio because I'm literally about to get on a plane as soon as I've finished recording this video. More stuff coming up on the channel about that soon. Okay, so coming up on this week's show, we check out the new Orbea Rallon. So that is like the brand new 2022 model, revised geometry, slick looks, etc. There's a Yeti E-Bike. Yeah, I know it's an e-bike, but it's a Yeti, so we can talk about that. Also, BMC have a new brand. It's hailed from themselves, but it's not BMC. It's very cool. Find out about that in a minute. We also talk about a random fitness strap, a bit about Shimano, and some cool stuff from you guys. Shimano are 100 years old in mountain biking this year. So it's quite insane, isn't it? From 1921 to 2021, making off-road componentry, road componentry, rowing stuff, fishing spools, all sorts of crazy tech stuff. And they do this to the absolute best of their ability by learning from the people that need and use the stuff. It's a really admirable way of working. And actually their book, I've managed to get hold of a copy of this book. I did a bit of research, found out that such a thing did exist. Now, make no mistake, this isn't like your cool coffee table book like the Gary Fisher book we looked at recently, or even that Cannondale book celebrating their years. But this is a really detailed account of everything Shimano have done from day one. It's mind-blowing. It's a serious bit of work to do. And on top of that, as well as coming with the history, there's a book all about the figures of stuff they have sold over the years and things they have manufactured. I mean, it's full of charts in here, pie charts, Gantt charts, are all in here, and with loads of stats about everything Shimano has done. And some of the things I had no idea about. It's fascinating stuff. But something very cool, which I'm just trying to find the page now, is they're actually making derailleurs since 1954. There's a bit of a selection of some of the derailleurs there. Very cool stuff. That's going all the way up to the latest GRX derailleur, so there's obviously room for the new XTR whenever that may emerge. Now, the book is really cool, and it just made me realise how good Shimano is as a brand because of how they started. So coming at you, just a few random things I just want to throw into the mix. Shozuhiro Shimano founded the company in 1921 when he had a single lathe, and he started by making a freewheel. Now, he made this to the absolute best quality possibly could, and actually started winning some Japanese recognition awards for this. Now, it brought a 333 logo on there. Now, the 333 logo is actually a nod to the British company BSA, that at the time made the best bicycle equipment, including freewheels. And not only did Shimano want to sort of match that, they wanted to exceed that, but they saw this as a nod to where their great technology was going to start from. So that's kind of cool. But also, now if I get this right, I had to write this one down, it says also from his name, which is divided up into three parts. Shozuhiro. Shizaburo. The second character of the name means three in Japanese. Didn't know that. And there's also three brothers behind the brand originally. So you got Shozo, Keizo, and Yoshizo behind the brand. So really quite cool stuff. Now, actually, of the three brothers, it was Yoshizo that actually convinced the other two that they wanted to come into mountain biking. And in 1982, they delivered the DRXT group set, which is a dedicated off-road mountain bike transmission. And really, it's Shimano we have to thank for the reason why we've all got such great gears on our bikes, whether they're Shimano or SRAM or another brand. It all comes from what Shimano pioneered. And the coolest thing about this was that Shozuhiro went to the US market. He went to California and was riding with the early clunkers to try and understand what they needed, because it was a new movement happening. He wanted to understand what was going on. This is very classic of Shimano, to try and identify with who's going to be using the product, what it needs to offer, and of course, how well it's going to be produced. And they developed this stuff, and you can actually read a lot about that same story from a different angle in that Gary Fisher book I referenced recently. So I would urge to try and get hold of one of those, because it's kind of really cool to read this stuff. Now, the DRXT transmission, the Dior, apparently took its name from sort of an interpretation of the Japanese word for deer. And I think that's quite a nice way of thinking, that the Japanese designers thought of mountain bikers like deer, somehow gracefully navigating off-road terrain. I think that's really cool. And the logo is really cool. I'd wear that on a t-shirt personally. Don't know if you would or not, but the deer logo, I think it's really cool. Now, also, Shimano are really well known for their Shimano SPD pedals, Shimano Pedaling Dynamics. So again, they did that first, and everyone else followed, including like Crank Brothers and many other brands that do clipless pedals. But they also do clipless pedals for rowing, which I never knew, called SRD, Shimano Rowing Dynamics. Is a shot from on screen. So it proves that they're taking the technology, they're developing one realm, and they're thinking, hold on, we can improve something else by using that exact technology. Really cool stuff. And of course, they are massive in the fishing world as well. So here's one random fact. So Shimano make the Nexus Hub, which is an internally geared hub. Now, their fishing range of technical clothing also bears the Nexus name, and you can also see many of the same design attributes on their fishing reels and spools that you see are among the rear derailleurs and the brake levers on Durace and things. It shares the same sort of design ethos through the stuff. And actually, if you look at the internal gearing on the inside of some of these fishing spools and reels, like the equipment there, you can see why Shimano have been so good at doing things like internally geared hubs with very precise manufacturing and machining, and of course why they're so good at going towards electronic gearboxes and stuff that you're seeing on e-bikes, like the EP8 motor, things like that. Essentially it's a gearbox in it, the way the thing works. It's amazing technology, and I love the fact that Shimano are applying this in everywhere that they see fit for putting their expertise in place. It's amazing stuff, and I think it's really impressive to see what they've achieved over the last 100 years. And that's it really. I just want to say big up to Shimano. I just think Shimano is a seriously cool brand. Thanks, Shimano. Okay, so into news now, and first bit of news is from BMC Bikes. They've actually got a new bike brand within the BMC group called SCOR, SCOR. This is one of the bikes on screen, and hopefully you can see in a few other shots. This thing just looks unreal. I've just got to look at the bike myself and admire it. So there's one frame, there's two travel options within it, essentially a long travel and a short travel. So 140 and 160 by changing the shock, flip chip, and it's got angle adjust headset in there. So it's a really low slung frame, all the shock hardware, everything is down low. I mean, look at it. It just looks amazing. You can kind of see a bit of the BMC look to that as well. But also elements from some other cool brands out there like Actify, and it's just got really stylish look to it. Now it looks to have their take on a virtual pivot system. It's got down tube storage built into it, which actually has a spare SRAM UDH in there. And of course the frame is using the SRAM UDH hanger, which is great. Thank you, another person or another brand using that great thing. Enduro Max bearings in there. There's an e-bike version as well. We won't speak about that. I know the guys on the EMBN will, but something I kind of quite liked in the press release, which says SCOR refer to e-bikes as electric and regular bikes as muscular. I like that much more than acoustic. Sounds good, isn't it? Muscular bikes. Yeah, much better than e-bikes. Just joking, if you've got an e-bike, I do like them. Now they have a reach-based sizing system, which is good, so they're basing on the length of the bike. Obviously, they will differ slightly in height, but the fact is the frames are as low slung as possible, and you buy them for the length that is applicable for the way that you want to ride the bike. So essentially, they have small, medium, large, and extra large. The small is 435mm reach, medium is 459, large is 485, and extra large is 515. Fairly similar to nuke-proof sizing, actually, and Canyon, to be fair, and a lot of people with modern geometry. All looks good. 63.5 to 65 degree head angle, adjustable of course there. 76.5 or 76 degree seat angle. These numbers I'm quoting, by the way, are for the long travel. With the short travel, they're very slightly steeper. Just imagine now, I'm going to give you a massive list of geometry here. 77.9 to 77.4 degree seat angle on there, yeah. And I use kind of a seat offset method by measuring the seat at 750mm high, so you get an idea of where it's going to be on the frame, depending on how high it is. Really cool stuff. I mean, look at it. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. I just think it's an amazing looking bike. We're going to report more when we find out a bit more about it, but this is just a little bit of a first look at the bike. Next up in news, there's a new Orbea Rallon on the scene, or a Rallon, as you might see it as it's spelt. So it's an enduro bike that already exists in the range, but this is the revised version with much more modernised geometry, a modernised approach, and it's got a few new features on there. Neil's actually made a video over on GMBN, so there's going to be a link in the description underneath. You can hopefully get through and check that out. But this one, well, the first thing to say is it's a 2022 enduro bike, and it's not a high pivot. Do you need a high pivot? I think perhaps not. So, it goes to longer, lower and slacker treatment. There should be a bunch of shots on screen. I love the, I don't know what the colour name is. I'm going to call it sand. Sand, gold, it looks amazing. Really nice look, that. kind of a bit like this t-shirt I'm wearing, I think, which probably won't look that good on me when I've not got a tan, I've got to say. I've got a bit of a tan for a lot of outside work at the moment. As soon as I'm back to my opaque winter colour, I won't be wearing a t-shirt this colour. But I digress, back onto the bike. So you can run it in mullet setup, or you can run it in 29, and it comes with a yoke in the box. So the whole idea is the frame is the same for either, and you change the yoke and it adapts the rear end of the bike. But the fact it's included with the bike, so you can choose as a consumer what size rear wheel you want, I think is absolutely brilliant. Bravo to Orbea, I think that's really cool. It's 170mm up front, 160mm travel out back. It's got in-frame storage on there, which the bolt cage is part of, so you'd remove the bolt cage and the plate with access into the down tube there, so you can store whatever you need on the inside there. Geometry between 435 and 510mm reach there, so bang on point. 64.5 degree head angle, 77 to 77.5 degree seat angle on there, 440mm chainstays. Absolutely on the money. The asymmetric frame, I think, looks really good, and it's something Orbea have done for quite a while. And knowing what Orbea are like, this is going to be really light as well. So if you're after a lightweight, long travel bike, it should be one of the ones you want to check out. That is for sure. Awesome stuff. Next up in news, Yeti. Yeti E160. Yeah, so of course at some point Yeti were going to enter that market, and this is the bike. There's a few shots on screen. EMBN have gone way into detail, so you're going to be able to check that out on the EMBN show this week. But I just want to show you, because we love Yeti here at GMBN Tech, and I think most people kind of appreciate the Yeti are cool. So another cool brand making an e-bike. They're here to stay, aren't they? What do you need to know about it? So yeah, technically last of the big brands to make an e-bike. Wonder why it took them so long. Well, it certainly looks good. The new suspension design is a 6-bar or 6-finity, you could call that. 3 lower shock mounts to adjust the leverage rate on there, so that is seriously cool. It's got a SRAM UDH. Yes, again, anyone speccing this on a new bike, bravo. I think everyone should be speccing this. Now, this is nothing to do with SRAM. SRAM developed this as an open source for anyone to have, so the more people have it, the more it simplifies getting spare parts for your bike in future. So hopefully we can see that everywhere. It's got the iconic Yeti turquoise, also known as desert turquoise, along with the more subtle matte grey. There's also the throwback colourway, so the sort of the old school yellow and turquoise that you see on the old bikes. Jared Gray's race bike at EWS Crans Montana had it actually, which is pretty cool. No doubt you're going to see a lot of dentists riding this bike soon. Well, it's going to be expensive, isn't it? It's a Yeti, but arguably, could that be the coolest e-bike we've seen on the market? What do you reckon? Or are you just not into e-bikes yet? Be nice, it's a cool bike nonetheless. Let us know in those comments underneath. And last up is, I guess you'd call it like a smartwatch. I've got a Garmin one on here. A smartwatch for someone that doesn't want to wear a smartwatch. So it's the Whoop Fitness Band, the 4.0. This is it on screen. So essentially it's a smartwatch without a watch face. So it can be worn anywhere on your body, well, on your limbs, I guess. So it'll tell you heart rate, blood oxygen levels, skin temperature sensor. It can even function as an alarm clock by waking you up with gentle vibrations, which is kind of nice if you don't want to be sort of governed by the time. I think it's quite cool. It's not just a band around your wrist. The tech can be integrated into base layers, leggings and boxers as well. Kind of interesting, I think. It's an interesting way of being able to monitor what's going on without being drawn into the whole world of, I'd say it's quite invasive, smart tech. You know, most people out there have got a smartphone or an iPhone, something similar. Yes, all the stuff on there is amazing, but how much time can you actually waste being on those things? So perhaps what we'll be doing could be a bit of future tech or alternative tech. Are you a smartwatch wearer? Do you adopt any of that technology? What do you think of digital smart tech? Let us know in those comments. Okay, a few comments from last week's show then. Right, so first up is from Life Behind Bars. I've owned the original Mojo SL that Doddy was talking about, and I currently own a Ripmo V1. In my opinion, what makes Ibis one of the most compliant all-round big mountain bikes for the common man? What makes Yeti is a stiff race bike, Santa Cruz the same. The Dave Weagle link that Ibis has patented is second to no other pedal platform. Second would be Pivot. Yeah, they're great bikes. I love Ibis bikes, so don't need to sort of go too far on there. Von Merston says, Intense has the thing for me. Divisive as they are, I love the unapologetically shouty paint schemes. Yeah, you can kind of, I reckon, in their own kind of way, a bit like a Lamborghini. I've said this before. You know, you might compare, I don't know, Santa Cruz to being a Ferrari and Intense being the Lamborghini. Sort of the slightly ballsier, rowdy, almost a dangerous version. I think they're cool. I think the Zero Design Tracer, Carbine and M29 are incredibly good looking frames. Commercell also has it, sort of flagship brand for downhill, and rad as hell. And Canfield actually, so unappreciated for being mechanically excellent, those raw alloy frames. Yeah, it's a good shout actually. Canfield are just never on my radar, but I always seem to like them. I might look into them a bit more. Cool brand. Outdoor San Diego says, I like you mentioned, all the bike brands are cool in their own right. Absolutely. If it's a bike, it's cool straight out. That's like you've crossed the barrier there. Yeah, so I'm not ist against anyone's brand. Anyone riding any bike is fine by me. I ended up with a 2020 Trek/8 during COVID, as it was the only used enduro bike available in my price range. Trek would never have been my first choice, but I absolutely love the bike. Sure, it doesn't turn heads like a Yeti SB 165, but plows through the rocks, chunks, jumps fantastic, and it turned a 51-year-old into a flying fool, and that is pretty damn cool. Absolutely, completely agree with you. And hey, Trek make awesome bikes, so yeah. Good stuff. Shafiq Jan says, I love the excellent bike cave from Sweden. It was tight, right and out of sight. His use of available space is highly commendable. And apparently that particular one went down really well. I remember seeing a few comments. There was another one from GMC says, the small compact storage place was something else, Doddy. Well cool. I completely agree. I think it's great. If someone's maximising space, and let's face it, we don't all have space, that's a really cool thing. So if you've got another alternative tiny bike cave or anything unusual that you used to store your bike in, please share it with us. There's going to be a link to our upload it in the description underneath. Get involved. Be good to hear from you. Also, if you've got a massive, ridiculous one, it's almost like a museum. Let's see that as well. Everyone is welcome. And this one I absolutely love. I've learned something today. So this one's from Peter Cornham. Says, the Kona Mini Moolah is my absolute favourite name. It sounds so Hawaiian, but actually it's just aluminum spelt backwards. Every day is a school day. I love this stuff. This is awesome. Oh, sorry, there is one more comment from Door Animal. Hey Doddy, if you want to ride a white Preston, I have one in your size. I don't live that far from GMBN HQ. Yeah, I'll take you up at some point when you've got this together. It sounds like you've got to put it back together. Yeah, I'd like to just try one just to see what they feel like. I do have a feeling that the one that White has might be rideable. I might ask them first, just purely on the fact it's already together and I wouldn't risk damaging yours. I'd rather damage their one. But thank you for the kind offer. I'll take you up if I can't ride their one. Also, you say, I believe Kernet were the first suspension company to use a platform valve in mountain biking. To the extent that all the companies that use one had to license it from them, including Fox. Joe, I totally forgot about Kernet. So Kernet, C-Y-N-U-T, used to make these massive shocks, like they were literally this sort of big. And they used to put them on Foe's bikes primarily. They're one of the only brands that used to work with them, including using the fork, the XTD, I think it was called. Now, the cool thing about it is they used to have 2-to-1 leverage shock and bike. So you'd have a shock that would have like 3-inch stroke and a bike would have 6-inch travel. Now, that was just, sorry, it was that 1-to-1. But absolutely ridiculous, the fact that you had these shocks, this is what I want to talk about, with the platform valve built into them. They were absolutely massive. And as far as I know, Kernet came from the motor racing world in the first place. But yeah, then there was Fifth Element and various other companies that came off the back of that. Manitou had the Swinger shock, I believe, which is a 4-way adjustable shock with a platform valve in there, SPV. But yeah, cool stuff. Good to remember, actually, about the Kernet stuff. Okay, so let's go into top mods. Now, there's some really cool ones this week. I'm going to hit them up straight on screen now as I'm looking at them. So, the first modification is from Ethan in Sydney, Australia. Doddy, I've thought about sharing this for a while, and now your call out in the latest tech show was the motivation I needed to share. I know it's not the squishy carbon access bike that some people share, but it's mine and I'm proud of it. Absolutely. Don't be envious of what anyone else has. You love your own bike, because the best bike is the one that you are riding. I ride quite far as a youngster on fire roads around my suburb, but I lost bike putting into that. During the first lockdown here in Sydney, like many people, my attention turned back to mountain biking. So I bought this giant Talon from a guy on Facebook Marketplace and got to work sorting out. Basically, there's so much information here, but let's see what you've done to it. Okay, so you've got 26-inch wheels, a 3x drivetrain, a 30mm fork disguised as a 100mm fork. So I taught myself to strip the Suntour Air fork to adjust the travel from 100 to 120. Nice, made the bike a bit more suitable. Man, you've done a lot of this stuff. This bike, so you've got your angle grinder on there and some multi grips, made some DIY chain pliers as well. Did some paint stripping too. I'll tell you what, that's pretty impressive. Tubeless conversion, wider tyres with tan walls going on there next. hey, this is what it's about. It's about getting something and making it work for you. Just because you can buy a £10,000 bike off the shelf doesn't mean it's going to be the best bike you've ever ridden. The best bike you've ever ridden could be one that costs 400 quid. You know, if you customise it to make it yours, that is really the key. So getting your bike set up is the most important thing, and then identifying what works for you. This is really cool to see. You know, getting a second-hand bike and then doing it all up. And good bit of paintwork on there. I like it. I love the fact you're getting the forks apart, giving them a new lease of life. Looks like you've got a mud guard on there. I'm surprised you need one over there, to be honest, but hey, they look cool to keep debris out your face as well. A little bit of internal adjustment on your suspension fork there. You've got your old mole grips on the go, the frame all stripped down. Looks great, looks really good, great work. Next one's from Doddy. So this one is a really cool one. So all the way from Canada. Bought my bike used in the middle of the pandemic. So handlebar was already chopped down and it's too narrow for my liking. This is very cool. So I designed an extender with some extra features. I made it so the end caps were screw-in, so don't just pop out and get lost. Well, just look at it. This is brilliant. So 3D printed handlebar extensions with thread-in bar cups. Just awesome. You can put pain pills just in the end of the bar plugs as well. I mean, maybe they could look a little bit suspicious if you're racing, but hey. So that's really cool that you've got a bar extension on there. So there's a few companies, ODI have made a bar extender, and I'm fairly sure Control Tech makes some as well. But that's a really smart solution. I mean, I don't know how far you'd want to go before you risk breaking it or putting strain on the grip, but it's a really cool solution. Really good to see there, Doddy. Nice work. And the next one's from Mark in Portland. Very nice. So this is a 2021 Evil Insurgent. So a smoking new bike here. Got super lucky and snagged a 2021 Evil Insurgent. Got it delivered last week. Loved it, but needed to change a few things. Here it is as a 170, 180mm travel bike. It came with SRAM G2 RS on there, but I wanted code RSCs and I managed to get them. Also came with the bike yoke revive post on there. And I know this will face scrutiny, but I upgraded to RockShox Reverb. I don't know if it's an upgrade or not. It's just like they're both great products for different people. The Reverb is great. I like a Reverb. I haven't used one for years, admittedly, but in fact, I do want to try out one of the Access ones. Now I've got Access on a bike just to see how clean I can get the setup on there. But nice stuff. Dude, looks good. Lastly, some red Crank Brothers Stamp 7s on there, like the red beady eyes on an Evil Demon. And the black was sold out. It looks great. I mean, Evil bikes, they've definitely got the thing. Yeah, they just look great, don't they? Awesome looking. Love that paint finish on there. Really, really nice. And we've got a bit of time for Rewind as well. So in case you're wondering, Rewind is all about the old school stuff. If you've got anything old school, is that you? Is it an old helmet? Is it some photos of you at a race back in the day? Or is it a bike that you've seen locked up somewhere that's just catches your fascination? You want to know more about it? Whatever it is, there's a link right there and there's another one in the description underneath. Send it our way and we'll delve into it. So the first one, this really makes me smile. So this is a Giant ATX 970 from 1996. I actually had a slightly earlier model than that, the one that had a red back end and the green front end. And I'm ashamed to say, after I think it was less than 2 weeks of owning it, I had a big crack around the down tube on there. I didn't even notice the crack in it, and my dad had bought me the bike. And one of my friends was like, oh, how long has that crack been there? And I was like, oh, yeah, really funny. And I saw it and I literally nearly crapped my pants because I was so scared that I'd just broken a bike that was not my first major thing I've broken. I've bent bar ends and rear mechs and cranks on it, but never a frame by this point. And then actually after that frame, I at the time I was getting it warranted because it was so new. Giant offered if I paid a bit extra to get the 990 frame, which is made of slightly different aluminium. So got one of those, but actually ended up doing 4 of those. The head tubes bailed out on them because they're made of it turns out quite soft aluminium, and doing like 6-foot jumps to flat repeatedly out of a bomb hole would just flare out the head tube. After that, they gave me an ATX 1000. I did the same on that. Then they basically gave me an ATX 1 frame. It was actually an ATX 2, the same frame, but just came with a cheaper shock. They were like, have this and don't come back. Which is great, and I sold it. But anyway, I used to love that frame, which is why I kept going back to it. So this is an ATX 970 owned by Brian in Mackenzie Park, Illinois. Doddy, loving the show. I wore out the hub on my 2020 Giant Trance 3, so I dusted off the old steed and brought it back to stable. The bike's mostly original, with the exception of tyres, grips, shifters and saddle. I still have all the original parts, including the original tyres. Man, Max's Helter Skelters. Flipping heck. They were directional tyres, yeah. I'm not going to lie, this bike scares the crap out of me, especially at speed. And to think Tomac won a championship on a bike similar to this. This bike was commissioned in honour of his win. 25 years later, it still works and rides like the day I bought it. Which is not to suggest it rides particularly well, but it would have definitely ridden really well for the era. So it was a single pivot with a linkage drive and a shock, and it had a linkage on the seat stay, RST shock and RST fork on there, Shimano sealed hubs, STX transmission on there, triple on the front. There we go. It's a great looking frame, and they worked really well, and it's a testament to how well they work because of how many frame manufacturers used a very similar style looking frame there. Really cool to see, and there's that last shot of it there. Okay, next one's from Chris in West Florida. This is 1993 Cannondale Super V 3000. Now you're talking my language. Ordered the bike after seeing it in my local shop's catalogue just before it came on the market. My Cannondale Delta V 900 had just been stolen. Rode it, stripped it, powder coated it, painted it, stripped it again, stored it. Resurrected in the form of an island cruiser. Oh, dude, you've done a hell of a job on this. Oh man, look at that. Pulls, components, brakes, top line cranks. Wow, they're quite rare. Shimano HB grip shift shifter, Exo rear mech, Orbea Fat Frank tyres. Oh dude, look at it. It looks awesome. Am I the only one that really likes the colour of those tyres? I think they look really cool, sort of brown tyres. And I think you've done something really cool with it. So you can, a bit of a retro mod, you get to ride your old bike, but you're not mistaking it for something that's like really good off-road. You've just made it into something cool. I love this, it's a great idea. Very, very cool that is. And look how mental it looks. Love it. The raw alloy there. Not sure about the handlebar grips, gotta say. If I was you, I'd probably get a set of those Vans ones that look like the waffle sole. They're the gum colour as well. I'd probably put a pair of those on. They'd match up with things a treat. But hey ho, they match and they're yours. They're not mine. Bottle cage is cool though, with the leather strap on there. And I get what you're doing. It does work. It does work. I'll take it back. Head shock system, and that's what it would have looked like originally. I mean, very cool. And then you strip down process. Oh, dude, I tell you what, it looks really good originally, but as stripped down as well. Hell of a job. Wow, had some awesome stuff on this week's show. Unfortunately, no quiz this week because I do have to dash to go make a very cool video that's going to be up on the channel soon. Hopefully you've enjoyed this week's show. Let us know what you think, and if you've got any interesting feedback on Shimano being 100 years old, let us know in the comments underneath, and we'll see you in the next show. See you later.